The Four Clever Brothers. Dear children, said a poor man to his four sons, I have nothing to give you. You must go out into the world and try your luck. Begin by learning some trade and see how you can get on. So the four brothers took their walking sticks in their hands and took their little bundles on their shoulders, and after bidding their father goodbye, went all out at the gate. When they had got on some way, they came to a four crossways, each leading to a different country. The eldest said, Here we must part, but this day 4 years we will come back to this spot, and in the meantime each must try what he can do for himself. So each brother went his way, and the oldest was hastening on. As the oldest was hastening on, a man met him and asked him where he was going and what he wanted. I am going to try my luck in the world, and I should like to begin by learning some trade, answered he. Then, said the man, go with me, and I will teach you how to become the cunningest thief that ever was. No, said the other, that is not an honest calling. And what can one look to earn by it in the end but the gallows? Oh, said the man, you need not fear the gallows, for I will only teach you to steal. What will be fair game? I meddle with nothing but what no one else can get or care anything about, and where no one can find you out. So the young man agreed to follow his trade, and he soon showed himself so clever that nothing could escape him that he had once set his mind upon. The second brother also met a man who, when he found out what he was set out upon, he asked him what trade he meant to learn. I do not yet know, said he. Then come with me and be a stargazer. It is a noble trade, for nothing can be hidden from you when you understand the stars. The plan pleased him much, and he soon became such a skillful stargazer that when he had served out his time and wanted to leave his master, he gave him a glass and said, With this you can see all that is passing in the sky and on earth, and nothing can be hidden from you. The third brother met a huntsman, who took him with him and taught him so well all that belonged to hunting, that he became very clever in the trade. And when he left his master, he gave him a bow and said, Whatever you shoot at with this bow, you will be sure to hit. The youngest brother likewise met a man who asked him what he wished to do. Would not you like, said he, to be a tailor? Oh, no, said the young man, sitting cross-legged from morning to night, working backwards and forwards with a needle and a goose, and goose will never suit me. Oh, answered the man, that is not my sort of tailoring. Come with me, and you will learn quite another kind of trade from that. Not knowing what better to do, he came into the plan and learnt the trade from the beginning, and when he left his master, he gave him a needle and said, You can sew anything with this, be it as soft as an egg or as hard as steel, and the joint will be so fine that no seam will be seen. After the space of 4 years, at a time agreed upon, The four brothers met at the four crossroads, and having welcomed each other, set off towards their father's home, where they told him all that had happened to them, and how each had learned some trade. Then one day, as they were sitting before the house under a very high tree, the father said, "I should like to try what each of you can do in his trade." So he looked up and said to the second son, "At the top of this tree there is a chiffon's nest. Tell me how many eggs there are in it." The stargazer took his glass, looked up and said, "5. Now, said the father to the eldest son, "take away the eggs without the bird that is sitting upon them and hatching them, knowing anything of what you are doing." So the cunning thief climbed up the tree and took away to his father the 5 eggs from under the bird, who never saw or felt what he was doing, but kept sitting at her ease. Then the father took the eggs and put one on each corner of the table, and the 5th in the middle, and said to the huntsman, "Cut all the eggs into pieces at one shot." The huntsman took up his bow and at one shot struck all 5 eggs as he wished. "Now comes your turn," said he to the young tailor. "Sew the eggs and the young birds in them together again, so neatly that the shot shall have done them no harm." Then the tailor took his needle and sewed the eggs as he was told, and when he had done, the thief was sent to take them back to the nest and put them under the bird without its knowing. Then she went on sitting and hatched them. In a few days they crawled out and had only a little red streak across their necks where the tailor had sewed them together. "Well done, sons," said the old man. "You have made good use of your time and learnt something worth knowing, but I am sure I do not know which ought to have the prize. That the time might soon come for you to turn your skill to some account." Not long after this there was a great bustle in the country, for the king's daughter had been carried off by a mighty dragon, and the king mourned over his loss day and night, and made it known that whoever brought her back to him would have her for a wife. Then the 4 brothers said to each other, "Here is a chance for us. Let us try what we can do." And they agreed to see whether they could not set the princess free. "I will soon find out where she is, however," said the stargazer as he looked through his glass, and soon cried out, "I see her afar off, sitting upon a rock in the sea, and I can spy the dragon close by guarding her." Then he went to the king and asked for a ship for himself and his brothers, and went with them upon the sea till they came to the right place. There they found the princess sitting, as the stargazer had said, on the rock, and the dragon was lying asleep with his head upon her lap. "I dare not shoot at him," said the huntsman, "for I should kill the beautiful young lady also." "Then I will try my skill," said the thief, and went and stole her away from under the dragon so quickly and gently that the beast did not know it, but went on snoring. They just don't make dragons like they used to. Then away they hastened with her full of joy in their boat towards the ship. But soon came the dragon roaring behind them and through the air, for he awoke and missed the princess. But when he got over the boat and wanted to pounce upon them and carry off the princess, the huntsman took up his bow and shot him straight in the heart, so that he fell down dead. They were still not safe, for he was such a great beast that in his fall he overset the boat, and they had to swim in the open sea upon a few planks. So the tailor took his needle and with a few large stitches put some of the planks together and sat down upon them and sailed about the gathered up all the pieces of the boat and tacked them together so quickly that the boat was soon ready. And they then reached the ship and got home safe. When they had brought home the princess to her father, there was great rejoicing, and he said to the 4 brothers, "One of you shall marry her, but you must settle amongst yourselves which it is to be." Then there arose a quarrel between them, and the stargazer said, "If I had not found the princess out, all your skills would have been of no use. Therefore, she ought to be mine." "Your seeing her would have been of no use," said the thief, "if I had not taken her away from the dragon. Therefore, she ought to be mine." "No, she is mine," said the huntsman, for if I had not killed the dragon, she would after all have torn you and the princess into pieces. "And if I had not sewn the boat together again," said the tailor, "you would all have been drowned. Therefore she is mine." Then the king put in a word and said, "Each of you is right, and as all cannot have the young lady, the best is for neither of you to have her and make up for the loss. I will give each as a reward for his skill half the kingdom." So the brothers agreed that would be much better than quarreling, and the king then gave each half a kingdom, and as he had said, and they lived very happily the rest of their days and took care of their father. The Elven Grove. "I hope," said a woodman one day to his wife, "that the children will not run into the fir grove by the side of the river. Who they are that have come to live there I cannot tell, but I am sure it looks more dark and gloomy than ever, and some queer-looking beings are to be seen lurking about it every night, as I am told." The woodman could not say that they brought any ill luck as yet, whatever they were, for all the village had thriven more than ever since they came. The fields looked gayer and greener, and even the sky was a deeper blue. Not knowing what to say of them, the farmer very wisely let his new friends alone, and in truth troubled his head very little about them. That very evening little Mary and her playfellow Martin were playing at hide and seek in the valley.
"Where can he be hid?" said she. He must have gone down into the fir grove."
And down she ran to look. Just then she spied a little dog that jumped around her and wagged its tail and led her on towards the wood. Then he ran into it, and she soon jumped up the bank and looked after him, but was overjoyed to see, instead of the gloomy grove of firs, a delightful garden where flowers and shrubs of every kind grew upon turf and the softest green. Gay butterflies flew about her, the birds sang sweetly, and what was strangest, the prettiest little children sported about on all sides, some twining the flowers and others dancing in the rings above the shady spots beneath the trees. In the midst, instead of the hovels of which Mary had heard, there was a palace that dazzled her eyes with its brightness. For a while she gazed on the fairy scene around her, till at last one of the little dancers ran up to her and said,
"And you are come at last to see us. We have often seen you play about, and wished to have you with us."
Then she plucked some of the fruit that grew near, and Mary, at the first taste, forgot her home and wished only to see and know more of her fairy friends. Then they led her about with them and showed her all their sports. One while they danced by moonlight on the primrose banks. At another time they skipped and bowed from bough to bough amongst the trees that hung over the cooling streams, for they moved as lightly and easily through the air as on the ground, and Mary went with them everywhere, for they bore her in their arms wherever they wished to go. Sometimes they would throw seeds on the turf, and directly little trees sprang up, and then they would set their feet upon the branches, while the trees grew under them, till they danced upon the boughs in the air, wherever the breezes carried them, and again the trees would sink down into the earth, landing them safely at their bidding. At other times they would go and visit the palace of their queen, and there the richest food was spread before them, and the softest music was heard. And there all around grew flowers, which were always changing their hues, from scarlet to purple and yellow and emerald. Sometimes they went to look at the heaps of treasures which were piled up in the royal stores, for little dwarfs were always employed in searching the earth for gold. Small as the fairy land looked from without, it seemed within to have no end. A mist hung around it to shield it from the eyes of men, and some of the little elves sat perched upon the outermost tree to keep watch lest the step of man should break in and spoil the charm.
"And who are you?" said Mary one day. We are what you call elves in your world," said one whose name was Gossamer, and who had become her dearest friend. "We are told you talk a great deal about us. Some of our tribes like to work you mischief, but we who live here seek only to be happy. We meddle a little with mankind, but when we do come among them, it is to do them good." "And where is your queen?" said little Mary. "Hush, hush! You cannot see or know her. You must leave us before she comes back, which will be very soon, for mortal step cannot come where she is. But you will know that she is here when you see the meadows gayer, the river more sparkling, and the sun brighter." Soon afterwards, Gossamer told Mary that the time was come to bid her farewell, and gave her a ring in token of friendship, and led her to the edge of the grove. "Think of me," said she, but beware how you tell what you have seen, or try to visit any of us again, for if you do, we shall quit this grove and come back no more."
Turning back, Mary saw nothing but the gloomy fir grove she had known before.
"How frightened my father and mother will be,"
thought she as she looked at the sun, which had risen some time.
"They will wonder where I have been all night, and yet I must not tell them what I have seen."
She hastened homewards, wondering, however, as she went, to see that the leaves, which were yesterday so fresh and green, were now falling dry and yellow around her. The cottage, too, seemed changed, and when she came in, there sat her father, looking some years older than when she saw him last, and her mother, whom she hardly knew, was by his side. Close by was a young man.
"Father?"
said Mary. "Who is this? Who are you that call me father?" said he. "Are you... No, you cannot be. Our long-lost Mary?" But they soon saw that it was their Mary, and the young man who was her old friend and playfellow Martin, and said, "No wonder you had forgotten me in 7 years. Do you not remember how we parted 7 years ago while playing in the field? We thought you were quite lost, but we are glad to see that someone has taken care of you and brought you home at last." Mary said nothing, for she could not tell all, but she wondered at the strange tale, and felt gloomy at the change from fairyland to her father's cottage. Little by little she came to herself, thought of her story as a mere dream, and soon became Martin's bride. Everything seemed to thrive around them, and Mary called her first girl Elfie in memory of her friends. The little thing was loved by everyone. It was pretty and very good-tempered. Mary thought that it was very like a little elf, and all, without knowing why, called it the fairy child. One day, while Mary was dressing her little Elfie, she found a piece of gold hanging around her neck by a silken thread, and knew it to be of the same sort as she had seen in the hands of the fairy dwarfs. Elfie seemed sorry at its being seen, and said that she had found it in the garden. But Mary watched her, and soon found that she went every afternoon to sit by herself in a shady place behind the house. So one day, she hid herself to see what the child did there. And to her great wonder, Gossamer was sitting by her side. "Dear Elfie," he was saying, "your mother and I used to sit thus when she was young and lived among us. Oh, if you could but come and do so too. But since our queen came to us, it cannot be. Yet I will come and see you and talk to you whilst you are a child. When you grow up, we must part forever." Then she plucked one of the roses that grew around them and breathed gently upon it, and said,
"Take this for my sake. It will keep its freshness a whole year."
Then Mary loved her little Elfie more than ever, and when she found that she spent some hours of almost every day with the elf, she used to hide herself and watch them without being seen, till one day when Gossamer was bearing her little friend through the air from tree to tree, her mother was so frightened lest her child should fall that she could not help screaming out, and Gossamer set her gently on the ground and seemed angry and flew away. But still, she used sometimes to come and play with her little friend, and would soon have done so perhaps the same as before, had not Mary one day told her husband the whole story. For she could not bear to hear him always wondering and laughing at their little child's odd ways, and saying he was sure there was something in the fir grove that brought them no good. So to show him that all she said was true, she took him to see Elfie and the fairy. But no sooner did Gossamer know that he was there, which she did in an instant. Oh, Gossamer is a she? Maybe. Then she changed herself into a raven and flew off into the fir grove. Mary burst into tears, and so did Elfie, for she knew she should see her dear friend no more. But Martin was restless and bent upon following up his search after the fairies. So when night came, he stole away towards the grove. When he came to it, nothing was to be seen but the gloomy firs and the old hovels, and the thunder rolled, and the wind growled and whistled through the trees. It seemed that all about him was angry. So he turned homewards, frightened at what he had done. In the morning, all the neighbors flocked around, asking one another what the noise and the bustle of the last night could mean. And when they looked about them, their trees looked blighted, and the meadows parched, and streams were dried up, and everything seemed troubled and sorrowful. But they all thought that somehow or other the fir grove had not